It's happened. An American has won the Champions League, the biggest prize in club football. Stars and Stripes, the road to Qatar, coming back with a bang.
That's right, Chaz. For the first time in U.S. soccer history, an American brought home the UCL, the biggest trophy in club football, like you said. But man, does it feel good to see an American? We knew an American was going to win, but does it feel good to see our golden boy bring home the trophy with Chelsea after a 1-0 win against Man City?
Yeah, and that golden boy, Christian Pulisic, he wasn't just a part of the team. He played a crucial role. You know, it was really disappointing to have him not start the final. It seemed like he was in a really good run of form. Chelsea have always seemed to play better with Christian on the field. However, they went with Kai Havertz to start off with, and Thomas Tuchel's choice was rewarded. Kai Havertz ended up scoring the goal that won them gave them the 1-0 victory. But I think you can't deny Christian's impact. Chelsea were probably a better team when he came off the bench. The real head scratcher is, when you think about it, might be the selection of Timo Werner.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because going into the game, there was so many jokes about, how Timo Werner is going to perform. He's almost like a meme now. Every opportunity that he misses, he becomes more and more of a joke in it. And he played true to that during the final. I mean, he had 3-4 great opportunities to put the ball in the back of the net as Chelsea's striker, and he failed to do so. So it makes you wonder, when you have so many talented players, why they continue to play Werner up top. Obviously, it's a final, so it's hard to take risks, and bench somebody in a scenario like that when you're, so used to consistency. But definitely, I think Pulisic is one of their brighter players out of all their attacking creative players, and you got to question where Tuchel thinks his role is going to be, because we obviously, you and I really hype up Christian because Americans, and we're his biggest fans, but not to say that he's not a big impact. Christian, on their way to the UCL final, Christian had 2 goals and 2 assists, one in the group stage, and then 1 goal in the group stage, and then 2 goals in the knockout stage, as well as an assist. So fair to say that he did play a big role in them getting there. And so the question remains why he didn't play a bigger role in the final over Werner. So
exactly, like you said, they don't get to the Champions League final without Christian Pulisic. He scored the goal that gave them the 1-1 draw against Real Madrid in that first leg of the semifinal. Where my thoughts were going is specifically on Christian in the match. He almost had that storybook goal, that almost, the one that sealed it for Chelsea, sealed him down in the history as the first American to do it. It didn't quite work out with him. He had a really nice interplay with Kai Havertz, and he slipped him through, but his shot just went just wide, tried to lift it over the goalkeeper, Ederson. It's disappointing that he didn't score, but at the same time, this is such a big moment for U.S. soccer and Americans playing in this sport and, U.S. football, whatever you want to call it. And Christian understands that. I mean, we saw all the pictures with him and his family when he was rocking the U.S. crest on the hoodie. And I think he gets it. In a post-match interview, he said, he hopes that people see him and can relate to him, be like, I can be just like that guy. He grew up in the U.S. I can do what he can do. I can be the player that he can become. And that's going to be huge for a lot of the players coming through and a lot of young kids going forward, seeing a guy like this.
And that's a huge point too. I mean, just to mention his opportunity that he missed. I mean, I was already on my feet scoring. I thought that went in, but either way, this game, that impact that he had on the game, whether it was just being subbed on or not, whether he was just on the bench, both him and Zach Steffen, that is a huge step for American soccer. For kids of this age. I mean, Steffen's a bit older, but for players of this age to be out there in the biggest game club football possibly can have, that is a huge step on its own. Let alone, if you get a goal, if you get an assist in this game, American kids can look up to that example and want to build off of that. Who knows in the coming years if we'll see Gio Reyna take it a step further and score a goal in the final, or get an assist in the final. And who knows if we'll see Christian Pulisic again starting in the final, starting in bigger games to come too with the national team as well. So it's just a huge step too. I mean, disappointed not to see him find the back of the net there, but not to take away from how big of a storyline this really is.
Yeah, and something I found that exact quote. What he said was, "I hope there's some kids watching back home in America thinking they can do the same." And that pretty much just sums up that entire little quick combo that we had there, is that there's someone to look up to that's doing it, not just over in Europe, maybe doing it here and there in the Premier League or in a little cup. He's doing it on the biggest stage that there is. It doesn't get any bigger than the Champions League final in regards, to club football around the world, and it's huge. And this is going to sound bold. I tweeted it out immediately after the final because that's just kind of how I felt. But Christian Pulisic has probably done more than anybody for U.S. soccer than in the history of the game. I mean, think about it. Obviously, Landon Donovan was great. He's our all-time leading scorer. Clint Dempsey did a lot of good things over in the Premier League, and he did a lot of good things over in MLS. But there's not a single player that's had the impact at the age that Christian Pulisic has done it as well. Let's not forget, he's only 22 years old, and he's already won a UCL final. He's had a big-time impact in the Premier League. He's won a Pokal Cup over in Germany, and he's just getting started.
I think this is, going off of that, it shines true because this is the first time when people of other nationalities and people of, who support different teams are actually looking at an American player and saying, this guy's good. With Landon Donovan, with Clint Dempsey, we knew that these guys were good, but they never had that international recognition. This is the first time that Christian Pulisic is putting, Americans on the map in international soccer and saying, Americans can play ball. I'm one of the best at the game in the Premier League, and I'm American. Clint Dempsey and Landon Donovan really didn't have that kind of impact when they played in Europe or when they played, on American soil. And so I think when you say that Christian has done the most for American soccer, more than anybody, I think it can be argued that that's true because of the recognition of Americans that we are starting to build up now, and that faith in Americans that is starting to build up. We see big teams starting to put their trust into American players, and I think a lot of that stems from the example that Christian Pulisic is setting.
Yeah, and it's not even just that. Like the example that he's setting, he's paving way for a lot of other American players over in Europe. He's paving the way for a guy like Gio Reyna to be able to burst onto the scene at the same club that he did with Borussia Dortmund. For guys over at Schalke, like Matthew Hoppe is doing right now. All over the place, you're seeing American players popping up. And the first one that there was, the first true one that people were like, damn, this guy could be a world-class player. And it seems like he's on his way to. He just needs to stay fit. And that obviously that's the big, but with Christian. And the reality is the dude's an absolute dynamite of a player. And he's been the best U.S. player since he was 18 years old. You could argue he's been the best player since he was probably 17, maybe even when he was 16. He just wasn't, physically ready to play at the level and at the physicality that international play, especially in CONCACAF, requires.
Yeah, and then it's to continue on that, it's now being this age and up to that physicality, it's up to him to continue getting that sort of level of play now and keep building on that, because we know he's world class. But I think you tweeted as well that this is not just his first. I think he could even raise the ceiling on himself and make a bigger name for himself from here. And he's already done more than anybody, but where else can an American player go from this point? And
I think the way to go is to start being, and I think for him to get here, he has to get consistent minutes, and for that to happen, ideally he just has to stay fit, because when he's fit and firing, the reality is there's not many players that are better than him on their day. I mean, I think I've mentioned it, before on this show, but Christian can be one of the best players in the world if he stays fit. It is very possible. And I think that's where he can head. And I think that's where he will head if he keeps going on this path. And that path could lead him to Team of the Years, maybe to Ballon d'Or nominations, stuff like that. And hopefully he gets to show it on an even bigger stage at the World Cup, representing the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you mentioned that, because when we were talking about him having that huge impact on American soccer, is that's the one thing that he's missing from his career so far. I mean, he's done insanely well at bolstering our international appeal at the club level, but I think he's really going to want to be a guy that's going to want to make a huge impact on the national team level as well. And you see that with his celebrations after the game. That was one of his first instincts was to throw on the USMNT hoodie and strut that around as if he's proud of it. So I think he really wants to make a name next on the international level, which is good to see, because if he takes that kind of impact into the World Cup, that will ultimately be what puts him over, the likes of Dempsey, Donovan, because that's where they made their big impact, games against Algeria, whatnot, those big moments that, are going to be echoed through the history of football is where I hope Christian has his eyes set now.
Yeah, and we mentioned that, and it sucks. We always go back to that failure to qualify for the 2018 World Cup. And, one of the biggest things that it hurts that we didn't is it's a damn shame that Christian never got to play on that stage, because, at the time he was one of the most promising, best young players in the world. And the reason we didn't qualify was not down to him. He was our best player in qualifying. He showed up to play in that game against Trinidad. It was the other older players that didn't show up to play. And like I said, I think that could have even propelled him to a higher level than we are seeing now. But the reality is now he has an opportunity. He has the team around him, I believe, to really make a run at a World Cup soon, hopefully, to go farther than any U.S. team has gone before.
Yeah. And you have one of the things that you could benefit from winning a trophy like the Champions League is building that mentality. You have a player, a leader in your team now, in our young national team side, that has won the biggest trophy in club football. That's an elite mentality that Christian can bring over to the national team. This guy is a winner. Zach Steffen played in the final as well. He's at Manchester City winning tons of trophies each year. These guys are winners, and they can bring that mentality over. We talk about Cristiano Ronaldo with that mentality, that mentality that's born to win, winning those big games. And I don't think that, come a game like Trinidad and Tobago, again, to qualify for the World Cup, it's going to be that mentality that pushes these players forward. And I think that's something that we may have lacked back then, but hopefully Christian and, Steffen and McKennie, all these guys winning trophies are not going to want to slip up this time, because they know the feeling of what it's like to win now. They're winning trophies with their, domestic club teams. And now, they want that to translate over to the national team, which a lot of them care a lot about.
Exactly. And going off that, him being a winner, a big part of that is the fact that Christian is a big game player. There is no denying that. When on the biggest stages and when it really counts, Christian shows up to play. I mean, you just think back to the Champions League semifinals. He got a goal and came off the bench and got an assist in the second game. And then, even going back a little bit further that to last season, right before his injury in the FA Cup final, he scored a goal and was about to score a second one, and he just unfortunately did his hamstring. And you just go back throughout Christian Pulisic's career, and whenever he's needed to step up the most, he steps up.
Yeah, and that's it's something that makes me mad too, seeing people that doubt him because he's not the one starting over Havertz or whatnot, and Havertz scores the goal, he might be looked at as the better player, but look, Christian had a big impact on this Champions League tournament, as you mentioned, and just because he doesn't start the final, just because he plays only 25-30 minutes, doesn't mean that he's fallen off, to the likes of Havertz, Ziyech, or Werner, whatever. That he still played a big impact in this tournament, and they probably wouldn't have gone gone on that far without Pulisic. I mean, his goal, especially the one against Real Madrid, that's crucial. That's part of Tuchel's strategy to get on, is playing so defensively and counting on those few opportunities to score goals and putting them away. Christian was the guy that put it away that game, and so it's crucial that he played that part then, and he played a big part throughout the tournament. And so I think it's, moving forward, it's huge to recognize that he's a big game player, and it doesn't matter how big the impact. If he can get an impact off the bench or whatnot, he can do it. And for at a team like Chelsea, which is, they have so many talented players, it's good to see that Christian can put in that, contribution still.
Yeah, 100%. And, you don't want him to get shoehorned in as a super sub. That's just not what you want to see happen. That's kind of what happened with Chicharito with Manchester United back in the day. And I'm not comparing Christian Pulisic to Javier Hernandez, but especially because obviously their talents are just completely different. Christian's talent is just on a whole other level, and the impact that he can have is just a lot more than even Chicharito could have had in his prime over in Europe. But that's just kind of where he got shoehorned into, and he couldn't really grow out of that. I don't think that's what's going on here with Chelsea. I think a lot of that has to go down with his fitness. And we do need to understand, everyone was thinking, oh, Thomas Tuchel's coming in, he coached him at Dortmund, Pulisic's going to be the guy. And there's always that injury bug that's been holding him back. I think part of why he's been in and out of the team is Tuchel's just managing that injury. He wants to be able to get the best out of Christian. And at times, maybe at this point in his career, he hasn't maybe 100% fully recovered from that hamstring issue. Those are, nagging things. Is maybe he can't play 3 games in a row right now. Maybe he needs to get stronger, and he still needs to build up more of that injury tolerance and that pain tolerance before he can really take the next stage in his career. And hopefully that's, where he's going to go. And that's the next step he takes next year, because if he's able to do that, we just keep saying it, the sky's the limit. I mean, the dude, the talent is just off the charts, and the impact that he has on games is lights out, and he's a game changer.
Yeah,
Simple
that
as
being said, we obviously have a busy summer ahead of us with the national team, but going back into the club season next year or this fall, what do you think Christian's impact will be? Like, where do you think he's going to stand with Tuchel, assuming that he stays fit over summer with the national team and is able to get even stronger? Like, where do you think he can go from here?
Like I said, I think if he's able to stay healthy, there's a realistic shot he's in the team of the season next year. I genuinely think that's where he can go if he's able to stay fit, because when he's put together a run of games, you see that Chelsea have been at their best, and Christian's been among one of the most impactful players in the Premier League. And I mean, even on the world stage, if you want to take it even to a broader context.
Absolutely. I think, come, after summer, I think come time for the club season, if we could see a season, with Christian putting down, 30 to 40 appearances for Chelsea, like as one of their main guys, I think he can easily be on that, team of the season or whatnot. It's about time, pending how summer goes, but I think it's about time that he starts getting those consistent minutes and putting himself, on the forefront of the team sheet. And I think that this coming season could be the time to do that.
Yeah, and he's definitely going to be one of the, the betting candidates or the betting favorites to win Young Player of the Season in the Premier League next year. And honestly, like if I were a gambler like that, I would he'd be one of the first names that I go to on that list. I mean, there aren't many guys that I think that I would feel more comfortable putting my money down to bet on that.
Yes, sir. He's definitely had a huge impact at the club level, but make sure to check out everything this coming week for the Nations League, as Christian is back with the team against Honduras this week on Thursday, I believe, and then potentially this weekend if we make it into the final. So make sure to keep up with Stars and Strikes this week, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Trophy season, baby. Let's go.
Peace.